Imagine a country so long that if you picked it up and laid it across the United States, it would stretch from Canada all the way down to Mexico. Now imagine that same country is, at some points, so narrow you could drive across it in under 2 hours. That country is real. It's called Chile, and its shape isn't the strangest thing about it. Not even close. This is a nation where you can stand in the driest desert on the entire planet, then drive south for a few days and end up staring at glaciers older than human civilization. One country, two impossible extremes. And there's a reason for all of it, hidden deep beneath the ground. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Chile shouldn't really exist the way it does, why the Earth shakes here more than almost anywhere else, why one of its islands is one of the most remote places humans have ever settled, and why this narrow strip of land became one of the wealthiest, strangest, and most naturally extreme countries on Earth. Let's start with the shape, because that's where the mystery begins. Chile stretches about 4,300 kilometers from north to south. That's roughly the same as the distance from London to Baghdad. But on average, it's only about 180 kilometers wide. At its narrowest point, you could walk across the country in a single day. At first, this doesn't make any sense. Why would a country grow like this? Countries are usually roundish or blocky, shaped by rivers, mountain ranges, or old empires drawing lines on maps. Chile looks like it was stretched on purpose. The real reason is far more surprising than politics or history. It's geology. Chile sits on one of the most violent tectonic boundaries on the planet. To the west, the Nazca Plate, a massive slab of ocean floor, is constantly sliding underneath the South American plate. Geologists call this subduction. This collision has been happening for tens of millions of years, and it created a wall. The Andes Mountains rose up like a spine along the entire eastern edge of the country, while the Pacific Ocean sealed off the west. Chile got trapped between a mountain range and an ocean, squeezed into a long, thin ribbon of land. That's the shape. But that same tectonic collision is also the reason Chile shakes more than almost anywhere else on Earth. Chile has experienced some of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded by modern instruments. In 1960, a magnitude 9.5 earthquake struck near the city of Valdivia. It remains the strongest earthquake ever measured. It triggered tsunamis that crossed the entire Pacific Ocean, causing damage as far away as Japan and Hawaii, more than 17,000 kilometers away. But here's where things get even stranger. Instead of running from this danger, Chile learned to live with it. Chilean building codes are now among the strictest in the world. Engineers designed skyscrapers that are meant to sway during an earthquake instead of cracking. When a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake hit Chile in 2010, buildings in Santiago swayed violently, but very few collapsed, especially compared to earthquakes of similar strength in other countries. Chile didn't just survive the earthquakes, it built an entire culture of resilience around them. Now, let's go back to that mountain range, because the Andes aren't just responsible for shaking the ground. They also created one of the strangest deserts on Earth. In northern Chile sits the Atacama Desert. Some parts of this desert have gone without a single drop of rain for over 400 years. NASA scientists have actually used the Atacama to test equipment for Mars missions. Because its soil is so lifeless and dry, it's the closest thing on Earth to the surface of another planet.
But why is it so dry? At first glance, you'd expect a desert near the ocean to get some moisture from the sea. That's how most coastal deserts work elsewhere. But nature wasn't finished yet. The answer lies in something called the Humboldt Current. This is a massive flow of cold water that moves north along Chile's coastline, all the way from the frigid waters near Antarctica. Cold ocean water cools the air above it. Cool air holds very little moisture. so instead of clouds forming and dropping rain, the air stays dry and stable. At the same time, the Andes Mountains block any moisture that might try to sneak in from the Amazon side of the continent. The Atacama gets trapped in a double squeeze. Dry, cold air from the ocean on one side, and a wall of mountains on the other. The result is the driest non-polar place on the entire planet. And here's a strange bonus fact. Because the desert is so dry, so high in altitude, and has almost zero light pollution, the Atacama has some of the clearest night skies on Earth. Several of the world's most powerful telescopes are built here, including instruments used to study galaxies billions of light years away. In a desert too dry for almost anything to survive, humans built windows into the universe itself. Now here's what makes Chile truly bizarre. Travel south from that bone-dry desert, and the landscape transforms completely. Central Chile has a Mediterranean climate, similar to parts of Italy or California, perfect for growing grapes, which is exactly why Chile became one of the largest wine exporters in the world. Keep going south and you'll hit dense, rain-soaked forests. Keep going further and you'll find yourself in Patagonia, a land of jagged mountains, blue glaciers, and windswept plains where the wind can blow so hard it can knock a grown adult off their feet. No other country on Earth packs this many climate extremes into a single, narrow strip of land. Chile has deserts, Mediterranean valleys, temperate rainforests, volcanic highlands, glaciers, and fjords, all inside one national border. Speaking of volcanoes, Chile has more of them than almost any other country. Around 500 volcanoes are considered potentially active here, and it sits along the Pacific Ring of Fire, the same tectonic danger zone responsible for earthquakes and volcanic activity across Japan, Indonesia, and the west coast of the Americas. One of the most famous is Villarrica, a nearly perfect cone-shaped volcano that has a rare, glowing lava lake inside its crater. Tourists can actually hike to the summit and peer down into an active volcano, one of only a handful of places on Earth where that's possible. But volcanoes aren't just dangerous in Chile, they're part of daily life. Volcanic soil, rich in minerals, helps create some of the fertile farmland found in central and southern Chile. The same violent geology that shakes buildings also grows the grapes that fill Chilean wine bottles shipped around the world. Now let's talk about something buried deep beneath all that volcanic and tectonic chaos. Money. Serious money. Chile holds the largest copper reserves on the planet. It is, by a wide margin, the world's largest copper producer, responsible for roughly a quarter of global copper supply. The country's copper mines are so massive that some of them can be seen clearly from space. But here's where things get even stranger. The same tectonic collision that created the Andes, caused the earthquakes, and shaped Chile's narrow coastline is also the reason all that copper exists underground. Volcanic activity over millions of years pushed mineral-rich fluids up through the Earth's crust, depositing massive concentrations of copper and, more recently, lithium in northern Chile. Beneath the Atacama Desert lies a massive salt flat containing some of the largest lithium reserves in the world. Lithium is the key ingredient in the batteries that power smartphones, laptops, and electric cars. As the world shifts toward electric vehicles, this desert, once considered a lifeless wasteland, has become one of the most economically important regions on the planet. Chile's brutal geology, the very thing that makes life difficult here, is the same reason the country became rich. Now, you might think a country this extreme would be empty of life. But Chile's isolation actually created something remarkable.
unique wildlife found almost nowhere else. High in the Andes lives the vicuña, a wild relative of the llama with incredibly fine wool, once so valuable that Inca royalty were the only ones allowed to wear garments made from it. Along the coast, colonies of Humboldt penguins waddle across rocky beaches, named after the very same cold ocean current that creates the Atacama Desert. Above it all soars the Andean condor, one of the largest flying birds on Earth, with a wingspan that can stretch over 3 meters. It can glide for hours without flapping its wings, riding the same mountain air currents created by the Andes. And in the far south, in the icy waters near Patagonia, you'll find orcas, sea lions, and even the occasional blue whale, the largest animal to have ever existed on this planet, passing through Chilean waters during migration season. But if you really want to understand how far Chile's reach extends, you have to go far, far offshore. Over 3,500 kilometers off the coast, out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, sits a tiny, mysterious island most people know as Easter Island. Its original name is Rapa Nui. This island is one of the most remote inhabited places on Earth. Its nearest inhabited neighbor is over 2,000 kilometers away, and scattered across it are nearly 900 massive stone statues called moai, carved by the island's original Polynesian settlers centuries ago, without modern tools, without machines, and without wheels. At first, this doesn't make any sense. How does a tiny Polynesian island, thousands of kilometers from mainland Chile, end up belonging to a country on the western edge of South America? The answer isn't geography, it's history. In 1888, Chile formally annexed the island, incorporating it into Chilean territory. Today, Rapa Nui is officially part of Chile, even though geographically and culturally, it's far closer to Polynesia than to Santiago. It's one of the strangest territorial combinations on Earth, a South American country that also controls a remote Pacific island covered in ancient stone giants. This pattern of extreme isolation isn't just limited to Rapa Nui. It defines the entire country. To the east, the towering Andes cut Chile off from Argentina and Bolivia. To the north, the driest desert on Earth creates a natural buffer. To the west, the vast Pacific Ocean stretches on with nothing but open water. And to the south, the land eventually breaks apart into icy channels near Antarctica. Chile is, in many ways, one of the most naturally isolated countries on the planet. And that isolation shaped everything about how Chilean society developed. Because Chile was so cut off from its neighbors, it developed its own distinct culture, largely separate from the rest of South America. For centuries, trade and travel were incredibly difficult. Goods had to move along the narrow strip of habitable land, squeezed between the mountains and the sea, or across treacherous ocean routes. This isolation actually helped Chile in one unexpected way. Being naturally sealed off from surrounding countries created strong natural borders, an unusual gift in a continent where many nations have fought over disputed territory for centuries.
Chile's narrow geography also forced the country to become incredibly efficient.
With limited flat land for farming, Chileans became masters of using every available climate zone. The Mediterranean valleys produce world-class wine and fruit. The volcanic soils in the south support forestry and agriculture. The freezing waters off the coast support one of the largest fishing industries in the world. Chile is consistently among the top fish and seafood exporting nations globally, thanks largely to the nutrient-rich Humboldt Current. That same cold current that starves the Atacama Desert of rain is the reason Chile's oceans are teeming with life. Cold water rising from the deep carries nutrients to the surface, feeding massive populations of fish, which in turn feed penguins, seals, whales, and one of the country's most important industries. The very force that creates the driest desert on Earth also fuels one of the richest marine ecosystems on the planet. Two extremes, born from the exact same current. By now, you can probably see the pattern. Nearly everything strange, extreme, or unique about Chile traces back to the same root cause: its position on one of the most active tectonic boundaries on Earth, squeezed into a narrow strip between mountains and ocean. The shape of the country, the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the desert, the glaciers, the copper and lithium wealth buried underground, the unique wildlife shaped by isolation, even the remote Pacific island covered in ancient statues. All of it connects back to geology and geography, working together in one of the most dramatic ways found anywhere on the planet. Here are a few more facts most people never learn about this extraordinary country. Chile is home to the driest desert, and in its southern regions, some of the wettest rainforests on Earth, sometimes separated by only a few hundred kilometers. It has more than 2,000 volcanoes in total, though only a fraction remain active today. Chile was also one of the first countries in the world to sign a treaty protecting a portion of Antarctica, since it claims a slice of the icy continent as part of its territory, adding yet another extreme landscape to its already unbelievable geographic collection. Most countries are shaped by history, wars, treaties, empires drawing borders on maps. Chile is different. Chile was shaped by something far older and far more powerful. It was shaped by the slow, violent collision of two tectonic plates, grinding against each other for millions of years, squeezing a nation into a narrow ribbon of land trapped between fire and ocean. That collision gave Chile earthquakes powerful enough to shift the entire planet's rotation slightly, as scientists confirmed happened after the massive 2010 earthquake. It gave Chile a desert so dry that scientists test Mars equipment there. It gave Chile mountains tall enough to block entire weather systems, glaciers old enough to predate human civilization, and mineral wealth valuable enough to help power the modern world's transition to electric energy. Chile isn't just a country with a strange shape. It's a living record of what happens when a piece of land gets caught directly in the crossfire of our planet's most powerful forces. And somehow, against impossible odds, not only survives, but thrives. From the driest place on Earth to ancient glaciers, from devastating earthquakes to some of the richest copper and lithium deposits on the planet, from remote Pacific islands covered in stone giants to penguins swimming in desert-adjacent waters. Chile is proof that geography isn't just a backdrop to history. Sometimes, geography writes the whole story. And in Chile's case, it wrote one of the most extraordinary stories on Earth.